to James. I'm going to let him actually come up for the sponsor of tonight's food with Triumph Interactive, and then we're going to dive right into tonight's presentation.
Thank you. All right. So I'm definitely glad to bring some nice food tonight. So if you didn't take advantage, it is really, really good. I started Triumph Interactive. It's one of 13 startups that I've been part of. It's one of 6 where I was a founder. And so I started in 08, which was a fun time to start a startup. But Triumph Interactive is focused on helping startups to build solid technical foundations and then helping them scale. As AI has taken over the world, we've started to offer a lot of AI services. And so one of those is an agentic onboarding workshop. So it's either virtual or in person, where I come and I help your team to become AI native. We're not going through slide decks. We're making sure that you're set up. We're going through your actual common tasks, and we're showing how AI can make those much more efficient, save money, improve productivity. And so that's one of the services that I do pretty regularly for businesses around the Triangle area and then nationally as well. And just wanted to tell people about that. If you're interested, just reach out to me through the website, set up time, chat, and see how we can kind of help you to kind of meet that new wild frontier that we live in every single day. So, and then also, we're Raleigh founded. This beautiful facility here. Raleigh Founded has multiple locations. They're Centennial. They also have Cary Founded as part of Raleigh Founded. They've been great to work with. We just shoot them an email. They say, cool, it's available, it's booked. And they just kind of let us use the space. They've been absolutely fantastic. So if you're looking for a co-working space, they're definitely an awesome choice for you. And they've got some vacancies because a couple of big tenants just moved out. So there's some spots here that are available. All right, so next up, I'm going to hand it over to Taylor to talk about AI implementations and offline. So Taylor, here's this.
Okay, when this shows up, you can search. Yes, all right. Hello everybody, I am Taylor Cotner. I work at a company in Raleigh called Offline, among a bunch of other things. And today, what I want to do is I'm going to take you through how Offline has implemented AI. Over the past, I would say 2 years, we've been very much, very deep into it. And I'm going to take you through a specific story about our need and want to automate lead gen, which is super exciting. I promise there'll be exciting parts about it. And we're just going to go over how we've gotten to where we are, why we need to get to where we are, and all that. You don't need to take pictures of these slides. The slides are already up. If you go to loop2.dev/TSC, you can follow along, you can do whatever. So they'll be out there. They're not really slides actually, it's just a little website that you can. I'll show this at the end. This is where you can find me. I do a podcast for the Tweener network with David Shaner back there. Every week or two, we interview people doing something and we have them show what they're doing, good and bad. And then we also do a version of what I'm going to show you today, basically every week where we're building stuff on Offline with AI. I think David actually just released a blog post today about how he created our entire business landing page in 64.39 hours, something like that. So you should read that too. Very good. Okay, cool. All right, let me talk about the history of this one system. Offline has already been using AI to build stuff for a really long time. When the early ChatGPTs came out, we were immediately trying to figure out where the edges of the box were. We say the end of the sidewalk, and that sidewalk keeps moving, right? The edges of the box keep getting larger. You just gotta find where those are. Last year, we spent several months rebuilding our lead gen pipelines because we felt that HubSpot's just a database. the things that the lead gen agents are doing, the people that we had were doing were very like in order, right? But we thought we could kind of do it better, and there's some other reasons why we started to do this. Every time progress slowed down when we were rebuilding this lead gen engine pipeline, we kind of took a step back to figure out what was going wrong, and made like a pretty big adjustment many times. You'll see a lot of my adjustments were being very frustrated building it. We are using the current version I'm going to show you today. It's not pretty, but it's on the right. We're still figuring out how we want to scale it, and I'll show you some graphs and numbers that'll show you why. Offline, for those of you who don't know, I've started in Raleigh, we're in 10 cities. Way to find your new favorite restaurant. We sign partners, match them with members. Members pay offline, and the restaurant partners don't pay us anything. Very unlikely, like your Toasts, your Clovers, as much money as possible from the restaurants for us servers. What you're seeing here is very small. Is the business page that David redid, and we are 4 people right now, we're doing basically this whole running this whole business with 4 people, 2 full-time and then 2 part-time. David and I are part-time at Offline right now. Let me give you the whole story very fast. Last year, David started rebuilding the lead gen pipeline in N8N. I'm not sure if you're familiar with N8N. It's like a visual workflow builder where you can kind of put little nodes in each thing and they just go left to right. You'll see like some aspects of that in what I've been building. I started building a tool in January that would do that. We get the edges of N8N and the edges of what an AI could help build with N8N last year, so we kind of flipped it over to owning it ourselves. And Atlas was my first try at it, and I don't recommend naming anything Atlas over because everybody names something Atlas, and then it always fails. That's what I'm So this is the thing that you're seeing today is the 3rd full retry of this app. Each time I've thrown away all of the code and started over with all kinds of new learnings from the previous one. And so I built another one called the Agent Team. Also didn't work, and then the Offline Agents one has started to work. We have this 1 salesperson, and the goal of this agent team is to help our 1 salesperson do lead gen for 10 markets and outreach to everybody that he could possibly be outreaching to, and watch all the partners for him so that he knows the next correct action to take, right? And so there's a lot that goes into that. The first aspect of the system that I built in January needed to do a lot of HubSpot cleanup, which if anybody's like used the CRM is the worst thing in the entire universe. And that took multiple months to actually like get totally right. David had laid a lot of the groundwork with the N8N flows. Basically, David took the process that I needed to start building agents to do it in last year. And we're going to talk about that specifically a little bit later, because it's pretty important. And this is roughly the order we ran into problems. Like I don't have like a framework for starting and ending. Like you'll see the things that came out of the messiness. Before lead gen, we were already building a ton of stuff with AI. Right? We were just doing it much faster than we ever did before. My history, really quickly, is I was a product manager in Raleigh a long time ago. And then I moved to San Francisco, opened up a small dev shop with my very smart cousin who was a very good programmer, did programming back then, moved back to Raleigh for family, joined Offline about almost 9 or 10 years ago. Was not a programmer, was just a product manager, and back when AI started coming out and getting very good, I went back to becoming a programmer, which is without the actual code part. So nothing you see here, you don't have to worry about being a programmer. Having it helps, obviously, when you're doing systems like this, but there are levels that we're going to talk about today that are good for everybody. Like everybody can take away some things from this. So we were building product features, internal tools, like tiny little one-use apps that we would use for one slide deck or whatever, and we'd throw them away. And then we were using AI to build N8N workflows for a really long time. We still have a lot of them out, right? Like we'll eventually move we needed to take it in-house. The other ones that are working, they're just working, and like maybe we'll bring them in at some point, maybe we won't, and it's very cheap. And then prior to this, I said we'd be using AI a lot of offline. Early February, I looked back at my Git repos, like my Git history for offline. In February, that was the first feature that I built on top of our whole full stack for offline without programming like a single thing. And we have a programmer who's checking everything at the time. We've gotten much better at not needing to check as much, and the model has gotten better. And so I built a feature called Offline Guides. I built a feature called the Burner, which was a way for us to watch the social accounts of every single partner that exists on offline, rate the posts based on something we thought we want to see from a lead standpoint, or maybe from a user standpoint, and then automatically send those posts to the mobile app for our users. That's maybe a whole talk in of itself, and like you can ask me later about that one, but that one was very cool because it, up until last week when I rebuilt it for a different reason, it ran nonstop for 18 months. I barely touched it more than like a couple times. So AI helping solve the things that we just we couldn't hire people to watch, 500, 700 Instagram handles. It's just like it wasn't feasible, and it isn't still. One of the great habits that I developed early was I did a thing called AI Friday, which was I just stopped working on Fridays, and I spent 1/4 of the day reading about the AI that was relevant to me, and then the other 3/4 of that day doing the things that I read about that day for offline. So I kind of worked, but ultimately I made myself an entire day every week to say, it's okay that you're not doing your normal job, because this later Taylor is going to thank past Taylor, right? And that was cute. I don't do that as much anymore because it's every day now, because I got Friday. So, take with that as well. And then again, in November, all the models got better, and so basically everything is just there's always at least 5 different things up on my computer at home. Cool. And then again, those reps of doing AI Friday, that was the thing that made this work possible now. It's just going to the gym, right? You're not gonna run a marathon or going to a weightlifting competition or something without going to the gym first. You just have to show up and do a little bit of weight, and then you just gotta show up again and do it. Just get that habit going. That was the habit that unlocked it for me. I think the way I did it was I found maybe 3 people that I like to follow on maybe threads, or one of them was just a blog, and I just read everything that person did and tried to use it. So I'm not sure what everybody's habits are. I'm sure lots of you have habits like this. All right, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. First version, this was a tiny little chunk of what this looked like, right? Think about this expanded out 20x was the amount of nodes that we had to deal with. A lot of this was cleaning up HubSpot with NAN, which was one of the things that you need to do in order to then start layering on useful, good data, right? You can't watch a market signal over in a blog or a website or a social handle, then pull it into HubSpot and say, oh, this belongs to Y-Hill. Let me go link it to Y-Hill if there are 6 Y-Hills in the system, and 8 old deals that have not been touched and the wrong contacts. So that system is kind of now the foundation of this lead gen one that we're gonna take a look at. I'm showing you the later aspects of how I'm now going through a feedback loop of improving the system now that a lot of the stuff is there. Last year, offline, unit economics are hard, the economy, blah, blah, blah. We went from 15 people to 4. But the work didn't change, and we're very motivated because everybody that's at offline really loves the idea of going to a local restaurant with your friends and spending time off of screens, right? That's the whole reason why me and Dave are still here. That's the reason Steve and Pete are still here. So we didn't want to stop doing offline, and so something had to shift And so David and I went part-time and started software consultancies, right, for little side businesses where we help other companies consult, but we spend a lot of our time doing offline and then working that into things like talks or things like the podcast that we do. So there's like not an option to stop doing it because like we really enjoy working on it. So this was January through June. These are like literal commit messages of my frustration, where very early they're just not working, right? It's, whack-a-mole, this sucks, going to destroy it. The models got better, but the systems kind of took on more and more debt. And again, small company, 4 people, right? You're in a company that has 1,000 people, only some of the things we talk about today will probably be relevant to you. And then, so again, I have all the code, but I basically threw it out and started over. These rebuilds, though, did give us some like super important habits that we felt. For me personally, the more you give these agents ways to check their work, and again, I'm from a programming lens, this is what I'm talking about. You have it right tests, you have it right ways of like seeing what you're seeing. They can just work better, and I found that the more that you can actually have those things, they just get further along without you needing any help. I switch models all of the time, like 2 or 3. Like I use 2 models back and forth all the time. Like we're obviously paying for the max versions on everything. We're doing $400 a month maybe for Quad and ChatGPT. It seems like a lot of money, but when I feel like when I look back, I'm like, wow, that would have taken a team of engineers a month to build in the old world, and it took me a day. Like the money, like doesn't matter. it's an investment that pays off really quickly. But I do switch back and forth, right? Like Anthropic will change their models every month, and then you have to get better at using that. And sometimes you're just not you don't have the mental capacity to switch models. And you use ChatGPT, and then they change it, and you go back. Highly recommend getting good at changing models. It's a very good skill to have. I'm currently fighting with Fable this week. We are not getting along very well. It's not great. And then being willing to delete it, right? Like, take the learnings that you have from building the systems that you're doing, and it's fine. You can rebuild code. Code is much cheaper now to reproduce than it ever has been before. Great. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. This is the Legion activity. You can see that at the points where we had to shrink down a little bit. The August is probably a little bit wrong because I took this a snapshot a little week ago, but you can see that like it was not going up when I was building this. And slowly but surely, at offline in our weekly meetings, we'd be like, yo, what's the process? Like, when everything's gonna start happening? Like, what's gonna start happening? And the big lesson, I waited about 3 months too long to launch something. Launching anything, even broken, probably would have been a little bit better than taking another 3 months. I was just like trying to build things that I thought maybe Steve would need. And I'm going to use Steve's name from here on out because this is like a whole system for just Steve. It benefits everybody offline, but this is like the Steve system. So I probably should have launched something here in March. The ability to learn. All right. But by June, the offline agents was running every weekday morning. It was going through, it was qualifying leads that we were like finding ourselves, and it was writing a little thing we call a research brief or an outreach brief for Steve to start to grade. And that's going to be a very, very, very important move that I like. If anything, that's the biggest thing for today. Is this like loop I'm going to show you. So at this point, basically just researches them, cleans the like partner up a little bit. Again, in HubSpot and CRM, especially with restaurants that have local, like physical locations, you need to have, if there's a top level holding group, and then maybe 4 sub restaurants, and they all have locations. All that stuff needs to be clean, so that when we start putting things together, it works. All right, so this first demo that I want to show you is the system that I go into every day that helps me just like know what's going on and like what's wrong. So this is the actual like live offline agent system. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. You can kind of see that. Okay. So this system it's just like very simple. It's like running on Cloudflare. It's got all like Cloudflare databases like that. That stuff is not super important. But every morning I open an LLM window on my computer and I say, hey Claude, let's do the daily review. And I've made a skill that knows how to talk to this agent system to see what's happened over the last 24, 48, 72 hours. And then we just work through the problems that it's going. And so it logs everything that happens. We don't need to like kind of see that, but you can see that there's a couple cleanup things that need my attention. These are the 20 restaurant deals that we have in our pipeline that I decided it was going to work on. This also watches for drift between our backend, which is the database we serve to our members, and HubSpot, which is again a thing that needs to be in sync, but no one will update a CRM. Like it just won't happen. They're just not going to do it. So agents love updating CRMs, I guess, because they will keep doing this every day and they will tell me where the problems are. This aspect could 100% be automated to fix. It's just one of those things where currently I'm just like, oh, this is part of the morning reps. We're going to go over the brief flywheel, but again, so there's a lot of stuff in here. I left this alone for 4 days for this talk specifically. It's almost always like inbox 0, right? So like, we'll kind of go over all this stuff in here. So this is the spot that I just kind of like work with the agent in. I always have an agent, like a Claude agent working with the systems for me. And then one more thing about this is, one of the really large things we found was how do we talk about what's happening in these systems when an LLM builds them for you, right? Claude Code's building these systems for lots of people. I'm a person, and I'm not a programmer anymore, and I don't want to look at the code. But I want to know what's going on, but I don't want to only talk to the LLM about what's going on. Right? There's a middle ground here where it's in the middle of the code and it's not the tool LLM that we started making these things called canvases for. I'm going to show you one, and it's going to be a little intense, but I will walk you through it. So, see the nice mobile responsiveness of my system. Every like job that we hire in our backend, and again, I'm going to use these terms, and they're going to come right back. We have a canvas for, and a canvas is just a flow that a system does. Some of it's code, some of it's like an LLM doing the work for you. So that when I find a bug or Steve's like, I want you to change this thing to it, I can go in, great, oh, cool, so Steve was referencing, we have this lead pipeline. I can go in here, again, it's very, very, very small because there's a lot of stuff. But this is just a way to visualize what it's doing. And these steps aren't even that useful. It starts to get very useful when you go to something like the qualifier. How does qualification work? I can ask an LLM that, or I can just go into my canvas and I can read the actual prompt about how it works. Or I can see what tools it has, right? So again, this is just a way to see what this specific pipeline does. And then whenever I want to change something or the LLM wants to change something that we're working on together, I can say, yo, can you just point me to the canvas part where you're talking about? I just need to orient myself. It's like, yeah, cool, well, Taylor, we need to change something in the locations cleanup area. And that's why not a good example because it's mostly code. But there's all kinds of rules in here too. So canvases are something that we at Offline are trying to wrap our heads around in a repeatable way so that next time I see all of you at some point, I can be like, hey, we have a way better definition of canvases now. This is how you should make them. This is our first version of canvases. So if Steve asked me, hey, like, how does the reconciliation of something work? I can come in here and look at it. I can also ask Claude. Cool. This is the way we talk and communicate together. All right. So, any questions about that? I'm not gonna stop like too many times, but that's like a big thing.
I love your canvases. Is this your own manifestation, something you came up with, or is this literally a feature in the system?
This is just a manifestation of like something that David and I have been talking about for months, not knowing what's going on, and being very frustrated with not knowing the vocabulary. I've been using that word a lot with Claude lately to be like, we need to have a shared vocabulary and a visual that we can talk about.
Going back to the account executive and BDR activity chart, could you explain that a little bit further? Just kind of why March was an inflection point for you? Maybe double down on that.
Yeah, sure. So the question was, why was March an inflection point for me? To say I should have launched something here. It started going down in October, and this is like emails out, right? Or anything, meetings, emails out. Like 6 months for nothing to change is like a really big time when you're a startup before people burning like a ton of money every month. And just getting anything out in that March timeline and having 3 extra months to iterate on it with Steve, instead of just like kind of by myself, again, because we're part-time at this point, so I was spending almost all my time, 20 hours a week, doing this, but in the like absence of any kind of feedback loop, right? So I was like building things, and I was like, oh, maybe these people want this, and then it would not work, and then I had to throw the system out. So feedback loop. Yes.
So for the canvas piece, is that more about process? Essentially, is it like documentation for you and the AI? Is it like multiple processes, or is it canvas just a single block?
Each canvas is meant to be something that happens in the system. I call them kind of like pipelines. Cleaning up a restaurant group is a thing that happens, and I need to know everything that happens across that pipeline mentally, so that when the LM's like, hey Taylor, I saw a bug, we need to change 5 things. I'm like, I don't know, are you sure about that? Because it often wants to change too many things, or you're probably experienced this. It wants to be really, really helpful when it's not. So these are just pipelines. Cool. David.
Why not just keep it in end if you want observability?
Yeah. Why not just keep it in end if you want observability? Editing things in end was just like not working for us when we were doing it, and then I think we all kind of got better at using agents to edit them. But what ended up happening was, well, personally, I didn't like end. And so it was just the way that it worked. I was having better luck rebuilding the end flows, like in like an environment that I had been comfortable in for like years, versus learning that new environment. And I think part of it was you were like, I'm so over end. Like this is absolutely crazy. And I was like, okay, well, if David's over end, like we can keep both. The more complex they get, the harder it is, and it's a very steep cliff. Like, again, we still have a couple of things running in it now that are 10, 15 nodes long. These we're talking about, there are hundreds of nodes, right? Because this cleanup is just like a very, very crazy thing to do, so. Okay, last one.
I was just saying that if you have a programming background, most natural thing for you to do is go away from anything.
Yeah. Everything looks like a nail. That's me. Okay. So another thing that happened at Offline was we were deciding how we just chose what to AIify and how we would keep track of what and like what were the stages. And again, this is very recent. This is I think June. I'm going to show you the actual funnel we have, but like the high level is you're hiring an LLM to do a job. Sometimes that LLM is like surrounded by code that it helps it. Sometimes it's just like going to do the thing all by itself. Like in our social watching tool, all we do is give an LLM a picture and a prompt, and it's like, hey, I think your members will like this post. That's very easy, right? That job is very easy to automate. Some of them are not. And so the overall steps that we think of when we are hiring an LLM to do a job are: you pick the job, you have to understand it, you map the job through process and where it needs the information from, context mapping. You set it up, right? You onboard the LLM to be able to do that job. You test it out for a little while. You have it you do it with you for a while. You figure out where it's going to live, the architecture of it, and then you deploy it, and then you iterate on it, and then you just kind of keep an eye on it and watch it, right? And so we have this big board offline. It's called the AI Application Engine. And everything we think we want to automate, we put in here. And then we're like, well, let's just pick, very Kanban-y, very programmery. There's a ton of different things, right? There's some with my face on it. Everybody needs an owner because the owner is the manager that's doing the hiring. And if you don't have a manager that's doing the hiring, the person you hire will 100% of the time fail, right? You have to walk them through all the way to the end of their job, and maybe even further than that. And so the first step that you have to understand before you even think about hiring somebody is what are they going to do? Process mapping. There's an entire episode of our podcast that is just this, and we have a skill at offline. I think it's actually the skills in the podcast team, where it just grills you about the process, nonstop. We made our developer do this for a thing that he was having trouble with when we were all in town one day. And we were go sit in the corner and run the process map on the skill, and I think he was over there for an hour and a half. And he was like, I didn't realize this was as complicated as it was. And we were like, yeah, no one did. So now that's all out, and you can do something else with it. Cool, so now you have a process. Next step, content mapping. What do you need? To clean up HubSpot, you probably are going to need access to HubSpot agents. How do we do that, right? In order to know the drift between these two systems, you're going to need some kind of autonomous access to these two systems. Are you able to get that access for the agents you're hiring, or creating, or making, right? That's your question. The next couple, again, a lot of these ideas are new, and we're very much still figuring out the definitions of them. Input and output collection. If it was a process that happened before, can you get a bunch of examples of someone doing it that you can pull on to know that it's doing a good job? Agent impersonation architecture. These are all just getting it out there, right? And this is that March question. It's I should have gotten it into iterative loop. Iterative loop as fast as possible. Because that's the only way that it's better. And you can see my online agents 1.0, Prodigy 3, is now here. It's doing these things, and it's not an ongoing evaluation yet because it's still being worked on every day by me, the manager, cleaning up the things, changing the system a little bit. But eventually it'll go into something we call ongoing evaluation, which is an example of this is when a partner of ours, a new partner, gets their first redemption, we send them an email and we're like, hey, congratulations. But that comes from Steve, because Steve wants an excuse to talk to anybody, right? Salespeople, you want an excuse to talk to somebody because you want to get them to give you more stuff, or we want to partner with you more. We want to talk to your friends, right? So that is not necessarily an email. It's just going to go out without us knowing. That's going to be a touch point. That's going to be one of those lead gen activities, right? See that number go up. This is also a very big idea. So does anybody have any questions about this one before I skip to the next light colored slide?
Yep. Are you using APIs or your cloud subscription?
This agent system is using APIs. Yeah. I did spend very, very many weeks trying to figure out how to use it on my cloud subscription.
Did you think about switching to K3 or something like that?
We are doing that. So the question is, do we use more of the open weight models now? starting to use those in some of the easier systems. What I found with building all these weird AI systems is that when you change a model, the prompt has to kind of change with it. And I'm just like not that great at evals yet, and they're expensive and they stress me out. And so slowly but surely we are dipping our toes into these open weight models from different providers. Yeah. Okay. This is Steve. He's not here, because if he was here, you would be talking to him right now. He's the nicest person. He loves working it offline. And he has a real job. Steve has to reach out and sign restaurants for offline, or none of it works. And like, I cannot have Steve like out of his real job flow giving me feedback unless it's extremely valuable feedback. Otherwise, I need to learn what's messing Steve up. Like, just like, I gotta like listen. And like when he's like complaining about something, I have to be like, oh, I heard that, Steve, I'll fix that. Don't worry about it. And so we started this idea that I was calling like a feedback loop or a flywheel. And that stuff has to live where Steve lives. And they live in two major spots. One of them is HubSpot, right, where Steve lives. He will never clean it up, and that's fine because he's a great salesperson. Like that's what his job. That's why he's doing his sales job. But he lives in HubSpot because that's where all of his information is that we need to talk to these people. He also lives in email, right? That's where some of these systems are drafting things for him, and then he edits them and he sends them. How do we possibly get Steve to give me feedback without spending 5 hours of this week, like just like in meetings with me? Like that would be crazy. And again, Steve likes to talk. In a 5-hour meeting, like we're definitely going to get through some stuff, but we're going to go down a bunch of fun tangents too, because he's a great salesperson, right? So this is, we have to put the feedback inside HubSpot and Gmail. I'll show you what that means. I'm sure some of you are not going to like it, but 4 people come in this all kind of case, okay? So the system's right. We write, these systems are currently writing these things called HubSpot notes, and they're like summaries. I'm going to show you some. They also draft emails in HubSpot right now. Some of them draft under Steve's email, some of them are in an earlier stage. They're in this like iterative loop where I'm like, Steve, was this email I put in HubSpot pretty good? And he's going to give me feedback on that. Steve edits the email in Gmail that we put in his Gmail, sends it. Or he gives me feedback in HubSpot in the exact spot that he's already in. And then this agent system pulls this in, and I'll show you that in a second. And then every day in the morning, I spend 1 hour with a Claude Code instance pulling in all of Steve's recommendations and problems. And I say, what are the buckets, man? Like, what do we work on? What do we fix today? Right? And then we spend an hour fixing stuff. We close out all of Steve's stuff. The next day, it runs it again with all the fixes. Steve puts more feedback in. And like ideally, that will get lower and lower and lower and lower, and there'll be very little feedback or very weird edge case feedback. All right, let me show you where I check whether the agent made good sales decisions. These are crazy things to say. Okay. In HubSpot, Steve has deals, and we've added a couple fields to the sidebar of deal, and there's 3 sections. There's the, what we call an outreach brief, and an outreach, so an outreach brief would be if you're a LinkedIn person or account executive, what is all the information you need to know to call that partner up and be like, I know everything about you, and everything that's happened since the last time I talked to you, and here's what we should talk about. This is one of the things that the agent system does. It pulls all of the context in from the perfectly clean company records that definitely are working for you. And it says, here's the account summary. Here's their active partnerships, what's going on. Here's the ones we don't have yet, but we should have. Here's the company, here's the relationship history, here are the people that we think you should reach out to, here's the other related companies that you might want to know about. So it's really long, right? Like it's not really meant for a person to read all of these. And so the thing that Steve's doing right now is Steve is coming in and saying, the brief is solid and reflects the current state of affairs. I picked this one because it did good. Like, obviously, there's many, many more that Steve gave me a long feedback on that I will fix tomorrow. We also have the system doing 2 more things every day. It picks 20 deals that Steve is working, and it tries to write the next email for Steve, like, and put it in here. This is an early stage thing where it's like trying to draft an email for Steve. Steve, on this one, gave me feedback about, hey, like, the AI shouldn't have worked with deal, right? And so I'm going to adjust the, like, heuristics for, hey, agent, you get to do 20 deals a day, right? That's a random number that I made up, so Steve would be overwhelmed. Eventually, it could be 1,000 deals a day. It doesn't matter, right? This one was wrong timing. This is why Steve said that. Let's adjust our little prompt so that when you pull all of the deals that you could work on, we're getting better at knowing what Steve actually wants us to work on that day. The ideal goal is to have just like 100 or 200 drafts in Steve's email that have been researched, cleaned up, validated, and then a little email gets drafted for Steve, and he can be like, yeah, this is good, or no, this is not good, Taylor, or I'm just going to change it to sender. All right, I'll show you one more thing, and we'll chat about this, because this last one is super interesting. Steve also is in his email 900 hours a week, and we were like, how do we know what Steve's doing without him telling us this? And so we have another like side system that is, when we draft an email for Steve, we save it. We save a little ID in Gmail in this other system, and we watch it. And if Steve edits it and then sends it, we save that too. And we come in here and we go, okay, well, this is even written like whatever Steve wrote. I think we didn't write that one. We did this one because it's an end flow. What did Steve decide to change? Okay, cool, the title was wrong. The title didn't have the name of the partner in it. He changed it. He was the wrong person. Great, that's not ideal. He put more stuff in. So now I need to be like, well, how do I get the title of the restaurant in the email that goes out? Probably not a big deal. Partner love flow. Oh, Steve bolded some stuff. He wants to like really show this part. That's an easy change, right? Steve will never have to bold this thing again, right? He moves stuff around. So these are easy examples. The like actual next email is not going into the system yet, but this system is here, running every day, just like watching Steve's email to know, is he changing stuff and how is he changing it? So that Taylor can go in that morning and say, hey, email agent, go pull the last 30 emails that we made for Steve and how he changed them, and let's fix everything so he doesn't do that again. Okay? And as we hire more people that are giving Steve more things to do, more emails, we don't need to worry about Steve telling us when something goes wrong. Because he's going to fix it, because that's the kind of guy Steve is, and he's going to send it. And then I'm going to see it, and I'm going to fix it, and he's not going to ever have to change it again. All right, I'm going to, I'll stop there, because these are 2 crazy ideas, where you're adding builds to HubSpot to like get feedback in a loop, or you're watching someone's email. Not, it is what it is. Like, we're a small company, this is what we need to do. Cool. Any questions about these things?
The first email that you sent, is that human in the loop or automatic? The first email that you sent,
Yeah.
Is that human in the loop or automatic?
Yeah, every email is human in the loop. It's only drafts. We don't let, currently we are not letting humans in the
Well,
loop.
why not?
They're stupid and they're really bad. Yeah, they are, sometimes they like, I don't trust it. I don't trust them currently at this current moment. It's the same thing that happens to you when I'm programming. I stop trusting Claude or ChatGPT. There's a feeling that I have that I'm like, you're not ready. Like, you're not ready to fly get you there, but it's mainly just a trust issue right now. It'll look really bad to send a wrong email to the wrong person.
It's a lot of cool tools. How are we gonna like tying that back to like the metrics you guys track? So that you can track it to like revenue or like time saved or email sent?
Yeah, so this is kind of this. I'm going to come back to the question. The current version is working, but lead gen activity is still around 700. This is the like leading indicator we have it offline. That's like if this number goes up to where it was before we started downsizing, then it's working. And if we're signing more restaurants, and our goal is to get 1,000 restaurants offline as quickly as possible, if that number starts to go up, then theoretically it's working because we're signing more restaurants, onboarding more restaurants with the tools that we're building with AI. And Steve is still one person doing a job that's not, it's just more efficient.
Does Steve use like granola or any like meat transcriber?
This is a great question. Does Steve use granola? Yeah, we make him use, I don't know exactly the specific one, but again, that's an entire other talk or a whole episode of the podcast that we did once. In order to make the landing page, we took 800 of Steve's previous call recorders, dug through them to make the information, to build a website on that. Yes, that will eventually feed into somewhere in the system. Specifically, say we were just talking about Steve having these calls where partner calls adjourn. He talks them out of it, tells them why it's so great for a bunch of different reasons, and then they're like, oh great, actually let me onboard my other restaurants too. Right? That is incredible stuff for the lead gen agents. It is incredible stuff for the website. So that's some future hire that we're gonna do in the system that will be able to tell us when a call was so good that we need to change the website, right? Or change the prompt for the lead gen system because we're getting back and forths from the restaurant leads. So this is, this is like a false happiness thing, but this is remember that graph that I showed you that was just dead? This is the opposite of it. It's this is the content that this new system is putting into HubSpot, and when the other graph starts to do this, then it's working, right? These are just notes, these mean nothing, right? We're honing the notes, we're honing the emails. Pretty soon, those emails are going to start going into Steve's draft folder, and that's going to be counted for lead gen activity, which we are hoping very much leads to additional restaurants being signed, right? And so it's good to see this happening right now. And Steve's cleaning it up. There's an anecdotal piece of this when Steve tells me, hey Taylor, I learned something from your outreach group. And I was like, hell yeah, that's it. This is the reason to keep doing it. Because Steve's I didn't know this. That's rare. When you find when a good salesperson tells you that they didn't know something, that's huge. That's working. Cool. So again, when you have a system like this, you don't need to start over every time you need to hire a new job. A live system doing real work, you can add another canvas, you can add another pipeline, and you can add a feedback loop and start improving it. Right? Sometimes they live in other systems, but the idea of hiring somebody, being able to see what they're doing on a canvas, getting feedback from the person that's doing it, where they're doing the work, then you just do that again, right? The bigger loop within the smaller loops. So again, the lead gen issues like that done will never be done, but we're hoping that we can scale it. And one of the huge goals is to go to a new market, turn this on, and just have it identify everybody in the market that we want to go after, and start going. Start watching them, watching their social, finding out who they are, putting the companies in HubSpot for us, and then Steve comes in, which is the thing that needs to happen for restaurants because they're very, very, very I don't want to talk to your AI. I want to talk to Steve. Everybody just the agent should work the way the company already works. I probably should have gotten rid of this line. So the same pieces systems are already useful outside of lead gen, right? Watching for database drift, that's not like a lead gen thing, that's like a tool that I could have put anywhere, but the system's here. And so just like I put it in here, and it's just part of my learning now. I'm like, all right, well, if it helps get out of data a little bit, that's like the connection. Partner signals is another thing that we have at offline. That's kind of wild. Again, a whole other talk where we, this agent system watches for new business openings, and this other like watcher, we call it, the agent system can say, hey, watcher system, watch the social from this account that we want to get. If anything crazy or cool happens, tell Steve immediately and write an email about how your new opening is happening. We can fill your entire thing with online numbers if you want for free, and then you can do an offer, right? So these systems start to kind of like compound when you like add them together. It's very cool. And then are we on track? Like we've just like made little systems that try to keep us knowing what we're doing. So this is me. Again, the slides are online, you can find them, but you should listen to, if like any of this was like interesting in any way, you should check out the Redacted podcast. We do it every week or two. We're like literally doing this, but on a much deeper level every week. With offline stuff for the most part. Cool. All right, questions?
Question about Steve.
Steve.
Has he expressed a sort of like je ne sais quoi about being a salesperson that he doesn't think that AI will be able to help him or help him replicate in some way?
Steve, have a je ne sais quoi on AI that it won't be able to help him?
Yeah, I mean, is there something that he's like, I just don't think it'll be able to help me do X. Like, it still needs that human, it still needs that, I think you talked about churn, and I think a good salesperson is really good.
Selling churn is like,
Yeah.
he doesn't want it. Like, there's no reason for us to like let AI do selling or churn. Because like,
Sure.
it doesn't, especially with restaurants, probably with anybody, like, you just want to talk to the person at home, right? So he is very, very, very much using AI every day. He's like quad code all the time, helping him like research things and do stuff and using these agent tools, but nobody offline would ever be like, hey Steve, you need to stop selling, like, because we think the AI can do it now. And you're like, no, he would leave 100%. Right? He like loves talking to partners so much. And like, for truly like offline, there's an aspect of offline that is like human to human. And there's like walls around certain things we do that are non-AI, right? Like photos in our app. Nope, not happening. Like we're not gonna send you to a restaurant that we made a photo for. Like we're gonna maybe they accidentally put one on their Instagram when we grabbed it, but there are like cordoned off areas of offline that we hold very dearly, and talking to restaurants and like helping them understand why we think that churning is a bad idea for them is like only possible through like a person. Yeah.
Just to clarify, when you speak about hiring new people, do you mean adding an agent to the system, or?
When I speak about hiring new people, I mean hiring like roles for the agent system. And again, it's mostly around like these lead gen things, like the systems that enable us to work as a 4-person company until we can hire people to do interesting jobs again, right? We need to make sure that our burn is above 0. Or below 0, whatever the good one is.
Right.
Yeah, we have to make sure we're not burning money, and then we would love to have more people. But yeah, when I say hiring for a role, walking them through that pipeline, or walking a process through the pipeline, and then installing it in that agent system or something.
All right.
Come chat me after Parker.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I mean, come on.
I come to all these AI talks, and everyone's talking about AI, and these guys are actually doing AI, and it's great. So thank you, Joe. That was awesome, and just love like seeing the actual insights. And I'm nerding out with Alessandro over here. We're just like signal and like lead gen nerds, and so we're this is like all the exact stuff that we're thinking about all day.
Parker's going to be on the podcast this week on Wednesday, so you'll
Keep an
see him
eye out for that.
in a couple weeks. So.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pumped to be hanging out with those guys tomorrow. So, yes. Well, hey, listen. this is the part where I normally say you have more food, but hey, we already did it all. So feel free to hang out. The space is open. It's yours. We'd love to meet more of y'all. Taylor's going to be hanging